Everybody, Clark from Thrive Physical Therapy and Wellness in Richmond, Virginia, and this is Strive to Thrive, your weekly podcast designed to help improve your health, increase your success, and help you thrive in life.
Yeah, my name is Cody. I'm a physical therapist here at Thrive Physical Therapy, and today we're going to be talking about, today we're going to be working on some things that we feel pretty passionate about, which is busting some misconceptions about physical therapy and about typically kind of concepts around rehabilitation. So there's a lot of things you may see online when it comes to dealing with certain injuries or dealing with certain impairments you may be feeling in your life, whether that be running concepts or ideas around training or stretching or whatever it may be, right? So we wanted to address a couple of things. So our goal for today was to come up with 3 misconceptions that typically we hear in the clinic and then we have to kind of talk people through or steer them away from based off whatever it may be.
Yeah, either way. So maybe clear up some misconceptions and then steer you towards or away. So hopefully we come up with some interesting.
Yeah, hopefully something comes out of it. So we took turns writing down some common misconceptions, and so today we're going to start with one of my least favorite things that I hear and come in the clinic, which is that I am dealing with excessive amounts of IT band tightness. Right? So I hear that quite often, right? And not to be condescending, right? This is still a common term used in many different practices. You may see this. You may be told this by physicians, by physical therapists, by healthcare providers across the board. I will tell you that some of this stuff is nomenclature or some semantics, just meaning that they may tell you IT band tightness as a way to explain it, but they may be thinking of something else. It may not be their primary concern, but they say that as a way to express what they think is going on. But we like to kind of clarify things a little bit and make sure that that's not your primary thought process, but what's going on.
So iliotibial band, let's talk about the anatomy first and foremost. Okay, that is a very, very big, thick band of connective tissue, wide and long, that basically runs from out here at the top of the hip all the way down and attaches down sort of below the knee. Okay, there are muscles that actually attach into that iliotibial band, but the iliotibial band just structurally is, like his analogy of it I thought was great. Tell him what you call it.
Well, basically it's a tow rope, right? So if you're looking at an iliotibial band, it's a non-contractile, thick, like decacarb thick structure that lines the lateral aspect of the outside edge of your legs and it gives you structural support. It's going to roll, but the problem is if you pull on that structure, it's not going anywhere. You could usually, I've read something somewhere that you could actually tow a truck that's been stuck in the ditch out using your IT band.
So the truth of the matter is, in regards to elastic stretching it, you don't want it to stretch. If it's stretched, then it wouldn't do its job, which is stability at the hip. Right. So more commonly, the issue really is, and I should back up one step. There's muscles that attach into it. That's how you produce force through that. You can stretch those muscles, but it's not a pliability issue, the iliotibial band. It's usually a stability issue, and also sometimes the relationship of the iliotibial band moving in relation to other tissues that can be an issue. So
it would be short-sighted to think that we could produce enough force as a human being to actually create a true structural change to your IT band. And a lot of the symptoms that you feel as a result, you may have IT band pain or iliotibial band pain. That's not uncommon, even though I would still recommend that a little hesitant since the neural structures within the IT band are pretty limited. A lot of time you'll feel more pain at the lateral quad below the IT band or something like that. That tends to be kind of more the pain generator. Or it may be a referral of pain. But at the same time, you may have some iliotibial discomfort. But a lot of time that's not a result of tightness or restriction. It's a result of overstretch or a result of overstress that gets put on the iliotibial band from either poor mechanics, poor hip stability, weakness in the lateral and posterior hip. Different areas like that. So often I would recommend you not try to stretch your IT band as a result, because you may be just creating more of the same stressor that's giving you pain.
Right. And many times it's a lack of hip motion or mobility, so you want to address the hip, not necessarily the tibial band or stability. And there are some ways to mobilize that many people are taught. We even teach this on too, where you teach people how to use a foam roller to increase mobility, but it's not really the iliotibial band you're trying to affect. It's musculature, lateral quad, glutes, muscles around it, and getting them to relax, which can be beneficial towards helping alleviate symptoms. And the typical place for the ITB bandage usually tends to be outside of the knee or even like up part of the hip, or referred, just like Cody was saying. So the key there would be to figure out why, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, this is just another kind of thing we see in PT where the source of pain or the feeling of pain does not correlate with the area that's causing it. So the pain generator is different than where you feel the source of it. And therefore, having a physical therapist assess you and try to work through the different systems that interplay with the IT band would be the best course of action for rehab versus doing the plethora of IT band stretches you find online.
Yeah, and figuring out the reason and the why, the origins of symptoms. A lot of times you make those symptoms go away, and you maybe never even touch the ITB, or you never touch the part that's actually physically hurting. You address the why, and the problem goes away.
Absolutely, very cool. All right, so another one that we wanted to talk about briefly today was along the same lines, and we'll be kind of saying some of the same things regarding this structure in the body. But another one that we talk about often, or you may hear often, is plantar fasciitis. In the treatment of plantar fasciitis. So this is kind of a very similar thing. Plantar fascia, just like the IT band, is a thick layer of non-contractile white tissue, comprised primarily of collagen. It lies on the bottom of the foot, and it attaches into the heel, and then it spreads out and fans out and attaches to all 5 toe joints. That structure is designed, to protect the arteries that run on the bottom of your foot from being punctured by anything rough or sharp. It gives you a little bit of layer of protection, but it also helps maintain some of the foot support or the architecture of your foot, so it creates a bit of an arch in your foot, and that tension is necessary. Once again, we want tension in your arch by your plantar fascia. It should not be slack. If it's slack, you're going to stress structures. You're going to put more stress on your ankle and hip or your ankle joints, and then your the other joints within your foot. So once again, stretching may be not a great idea if you're dealing with plantar fasciitis pain. It would be better is to support the tissue.
Right. And again, just like we talked about in the previous one, there are things that contribute to it. A lot of times it has to do with lack of ankle motion, lack of muscular foot control, a weak hip. There's lots of things that contribute to why that tissue would be loaded. And many times, the other thing I would say to that is where the plantar fascia attaches, a lot of times it's the bony attachment where it actually physically hurts. It's not an elasticity issue, but it's because it's tugging on it really hard. So you have to figure out why those forces are there and figure out the whole chain. And then maybe there's some mobility issues in other areas, but it's ultimately about figuring out why. And maybe it's a control stability issue, which is extremely common.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just similar to the IT band, addressing the areas that create more stress to the plantar fascia is important. Plantar fascial stretches you may see would be like extending or bending the big toe back and flexing the ankle up under tension. I will say that's a great plantar fascia stretch. You are putting that tissue on tension. The problem with that is, once again, that's most likely what's contributing to your pain in the first place. So I would recommend not doing more of the thing that gives you pain, and then do the opposite, which would be support the tissue. Maybe use anti-inflammatories and ice to keep the inflammation down, and then do exercises and have someone help you, guide you through the treatment through specific mobility practices or structural changes.
So again, I guess the take-home message there with both of those is to figure out why. Figure out why. And
talk to your PT.
So that's what we recommend, obviously. There's a medical professional. Figure out why that's happening to start with and kind of go from there.
Absolutely. All right, and the last topic of the day, and this I think is one we've touched on briefly in the past, but I think is still really important. And that topic is talking about orthotics and how often they're prescribed, and should everyone be using orthotics?
Okay, and I would say definitively no around that. And again, this is another depend kind of situation, and never say never on anything. But the key really is figuring out what's happening, right? Like when somebody's acutely aggravated, and particularly if it's a loading kind of situation, like plantar fascia being one of the examples, you might want an orthotic to kind of help slow that motion down or control it in some way to get someone past the acute stages. That can be very, very smart. That can be a good tactic. But the serial prescription of them, where they're just kind of given out, where everybody needs an orthotic, no matter what the foot structure, and just indefinitely, where you use it, through exercise, I would say that is a hindrance over time. Not saying there aren't some instances where you might do an orthotic on a more long term, but I would say that's more of a hindrance than a help long term. You might want to talk on that.
Yeah, well, I think the goal for physical therapy and the goal for rehab is to create your internal structures. You want your body to be able to control your motion, whether that be ankle stability or ankle mobility, or even intrinsic foot control. And intrinsic just refers to the musculature in the bottom of the feet that helps support the arch. So being able to contract those muscles and use them well with exercise and balance tends to help facilitate supported plantar fascia or supported medial arch, which is where most people end up developing, or most people get their medial post from their orthotic. So the idea is, I usually tell people, is the same philosophy as wearing a back brace or an ankle brace. It may give you immediate relief. It may give you the feeling of support. It may feel good temporarily, but wearing those things long term only make you weaker, make you more reliant upon that structure for support. That means that your shoe selection is going to get more and more constrained as you look for more and more expensive orthotics to support your foot under load. So in an acute situation, we think orthotics can be useful to manage pain, but in a long-term solution, or if you're not currently dealing with pain, I would say the opposite would be true. Let's take away some of your support and spend time barefoot or in minimalistic support. So that way you can start actually exercising the muscles in your feet and ankles to help maintain the architecture of your foot, or the integrity of your foot structure.
And the key element there is work with your structure, figure out the why. An orthotic at the bottom of the foot cannot hold everything up and prevent and correct an issue when the problem is the hip, the ankle, the knee, the multiple things that are components to why that would be there in the first place. So you figure out the why, and then you kind of operate from there.
Right. Very good. All right, so let's do a quick recap on kind of our philosophies on today's topics. So ask you, Clark, can you stretch an IT band?
No.
Answer is no, right? So if IT band stretches don't necessarily stretch the IT band, and I would recommend in very few cases an IT band stretch is very helpful for people who are experiencing true lateral hip or lower knee pain as a result. In fact, I think sometimes they can be very counterproductive. The other thing I would say, if you're looking to support your IT band, the treatment principles are about hip strength, hip control, and then making sure that your knees and ankles are tracking in the right patterns and doing things that they should to offload stress, not apply more stress.
Yeah. And so is stretching plantar fasciitis
very rarely helpful. Right? I would say more often than not, it's an inflammatory state. It's not something I would recommend unless you're a very specific case.
And again, same thing as the previous, right? Figure out why, figure out what's happening. It's a little more detailed.
Yeah. And then lastly, I think we can both agree that orthotic recommendations should decrease. I think people should be prescribed them less overall as a solution to most people's foot pain or most people's foot problems. And that it should just be something that we only use in special cases when someone really needs it to reduce pain.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes figure out the why again, and it can be a means to an ends. Only on occasional is something that is more lasting. So it just depends on the situation. But again, it's not a panacea of solutions. And if that's your thing that you're relying on heavily to rehabilitate someone, that's an issue as far as we're concerned. And what we've seen in practicality in the years of working with patients.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you listening in. That is our three myths busted, or our misconceptions around physical therapy and rehabilitation. So please leave some comments below if you guys have any other myths that you'd like to see busted or any other misconceptions that you're worried about. We'd love to hear them. We can maybe add them to some future videos. Or if you guys come across anything that you personally have dealt with that you found either wasn't super helpful and you found some solutions to it another way. So we'd love to hear about that.
We'll try to shed some light on it if we can. So anyway.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. That was your Strive to Thrive podcast, and we'll see you shortly.
Take care, guys.